Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on diversity, inclusion, equality, and intersectionality. I want to say a warm welcome to all the attendees who have joined in from all over the world. I look forward to your participation and questions. And I want to say a huge thank you to my panelists. I want to say thank you to Kay, Deepthi, Sandeep and Dr. Sanjita for your assistance and help. I hope I've pronounced your names properly. I'm Scottish and I often murder the English language. So I hope I got it right. But with that, I would love to ask each of you to introduce yourself and with a fun fact about yourself as well. So my fun fact is that I do martial arts in order to stay fit, even though I'm small and not very strong. So with that, we have an exciting agenda of things to talk about. So the first person I'd like to ask is Deepthi. Welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Deepthi Goguri. First of all, I would like to thank the panel. Jennifer, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and for the Data Platform Summit. Amit, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Myself, I am a database administrator with several years of experience in managing SQL Server and databases. So I work for an IT company and I am, if you talk about the diversity, I am one of the organizers for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group. And also, I'm a volunteer for Women in Technology. I also do blogging. I do blog for dbanuggets.com. And I did my master's in Eastern Illinois University here in United States. So that's a short introduction about me.
Oh, welcome, and thank you so much for giving us your time today. I'm looking forward to learning from you. And now I'm going to hand over to Kay. I'm trying to peer at your t-shirt, Kay. My eyesight's not very good, but hopefully by way of introduction, you can share some of your passion.
Well, I'm Kai Zelter. I'm a senior BI consultant at Untitled Chapter, which is a small Swiss consultancy firm in Switzerland. I have about 12 years of experience with data and about 8 years with SQL Server. Well, also the community lead and also founder of Data TGIF in Switzerland. Deaf actually, so I'm using cochlear implants. The cochlear implants are a special kind of hearing aids, so that's how I can hear you. I don't use any sign language because I can't speak it actually. So even though I'm deaf, I'm deaf since birth. So even though I'm deaf, I can't speak it. So I'm still speaking that way. I'm doing it now.
Oh, thank you for your time and your patience and support during this journey. We're very glad to have you here. And thank you for joining us today. And with that, Sandeep, I hope I'm saying your name properly. And when I look at your background, I realize I really have to tidy my bookshelves. Oh. So with that...
I just listened sometime before I downloaded that background. So I find it very nice. So I put it.
Oh, right. I should do that. Good tip. Okay. Well, so Sandeep, tell me about you.
Absolutely, Jen. And thank you so much for leading this. And this is really a nice thing. I love this. And I'm privileged to be part of this discussion. So I am looking forward to learn many things from today. I think I have the least knowledge about this topic, I feel, from all of these panelists. I work as a principal engineer for NextGen Healthcare. Also, I am the user lead and regional mentor for Data Platform Geeks. And I do not have any specific fun fact, but yes, I love to play a badminton. I love to play a mouth organ. And I enjoy eating samosas, which is one of the famous dish from India. Thank you so much.
Yes, I love samosas as well. I was in India a few times now with the conference where we met, Sandeep, in person.
Yes, yes.
And yes, I remember the food was amazing. Being Scottish, we fry everything. So Indian food is much better. You make it tasty, you see. So hello to Dr. Sanjita. I hope I'm saying your name properly. And you have a wonderful background. I want to take a photograph of your background and I'm going to steal it for my background. So thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hello to everyone from sunny California. I'm Dr. Sangeeta Gupta. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm very excited to be here today and also to learn from all of you today. I have researched, published, and worked in the diversity, equity, inclusion space for more than 25 years now. My doctorate is from UCLA. This is an area of tremendous passion for me, and I'm very excited these days to see the strong push for change in how we interact with each other and to see the attempts to create a more level playing field. A fun fact about me is I have boy-girl teenage twins who are actually also making their mark in the DEI space.
Oh, fabulous. They must have kept you very busy. I have one teenage son who will be 16 tomorrow. It's his birthday.
Oh.
Yes, so tomorrow is a big celebration. He says that he wants a moped license, and I have said no. So things will continue even though he's 16. So I've got a few questions I'd love to ask you all, and I thought I could perhaps ask you to discuss this for around 2 minutes. So we'll keep the same order of speakers as before. And really think when I speak to people, they don't understand what's really meant by diversity, inclusion, and intersectionality. And I'd love to hear your personal thoughts on how you understand these terms and explain what they are. I think we need to appreciate a lot of people are very new to this topic. It's something that's very new to people. So I think it's a good idea to discuss what they mean to us as individuals. So Deepti, if you don't mind, if I can start with you, what does diversity, inclusion, and intersectionality mean in your opinion and in your experience?
Thanks, Jenny. So as per my understanding, intersectionality is something that having that intersection in between various forms of social identities, which depends upon race, sex, cultures, different kinds of cultures, um, disabilities, and nationality, sexual orientation. So, for example, I can say it in simple words. For example, a person who is a woman, as well as that same woman is also from the underrepresented country, she's having the two different kinds of intersectionalities. So as they can have like two or more than two different kinds of intersectionalities. As the different kinds of social identities include in that intersection, the discrimination may also be increased depending upon each of those areas. So basically, we need to make sure we understand what intersectionality is and mainly focus on understanding each part of this group of each social identities to understand in what are the experiences each of these groups have in common. So that's a part of intersectionality. And when it comes with the diversity and inclusion, it's accepting, understanding, and valuing each person without like depending upon from where they are coming from race, sex, nationality, disability. Uh, you know, they might be coming from the different backgrounds, but respecting each and every person for who they are is about the diversity and inclusion, including everybody and valuing each person for who they are.
Oh, that's a lovely explanation. Thank you. I think you're right, and I think it's very people-centered. Nice way of looking at it. And I wonder if, Kay, if you could please share your thoughts. I know that Deepti is a hard act to follow, but I wonder on your thoughts.
Well, I totally agree with Deepti. She has listed a lot of stuff that I would say is really, really true and really important. I just want to add two comments here, and I think it's very important that we should embrace those people and also everything that has been said just before now. Because it matters to everyone. It's basically it's not just like me. If I am deaf or handicapped in any form, it also can happen that later in any stage. Actually, in special education, they say being handicapped happens at least twice in life. When you're born, and later on, when you're elderly and when you can't care about yourself anymore, basically, that's at least two stages when you're basically handicapped in the view of society. Because a baby, of course, can't drink itself, it can't eat, it can't. All this you have basically. But of course, also during life, like when you were 16, maybe 20, 40, 60, it also can happen. For example, if you have a sickness, if you have an accident, you may just break your leg, for example. If you have a broken leg, it's a real hassle, for example, to go on a lot of trains, because the trains have usually stairs, basically. And with crickets, to go on those trains is also a hassle. So if you actually see those ideas, if you accept and embrace them, we help actually everyone. It's not just for the able people. I'm pretty sure it also matters to the same thing for people that have discrimination in other ways. It's the same thing if I'm going to abroad, let's say to Indonesia, where my wife is coming from, for example. I stand out because I'm white, and I don't want to be discriminated because I'm white only. It's exactly the same thing.
That's a lovely explanation. Thank you. And I just wondered, Sandeep, on your thoughts. I'm learning a lot from our panelists so far. And just to repeat the question, for those of you who have just joined the session a little late, which I do fashionably late. So just to repeat the question, in your opinion and experience, what does intersectionality, diversity and inclusion mean to you? What's your personal thoughts and experience?
Sure, Jen. So I think Kay and already Dipti explained about what exactly the intersectionality, diversity and inclusion is, but I would like to tell my experience about it, what I feel. I have learned many things, Jen, that I have been following you from a long time, from Twitter or from your blogs, and I learned a lot from your blogs and everything. But what I feel is everybody have their own version of understanding. But there is no defined way of knowing what exactly. Diversity we know, inclusion we know, but what I know is what I interpret the way somebody has represented it. But in my life, I feel there is an intersection which we cannot see that. Something, it is just like we see people from different culture or from the race, from religion or all those things which we can distinguish, but something we cannot even distinguish by seeing some people. And most importantly, we do the mistakes unconsciously. So that's, I think, the place where I want to give more importance, where unconsciously doing something, and which is that's a mistake from my side. How will I rectify that? Before I tell anybody, I am looking around myself, my family, my society. Am I seeing those things? And this is one of the biggest topic which is we have been talking from last couple of years, but it was not there 10 years before. Why? Because it's not like that it was not there before, but right now since we started talking about it, it is really good, but we should not keep this discussion within this kind of conferences or with this, like, in some stage to and talk about how I'm implementing this in my real life. Am I doing that? Am I learning it? If I see something is going wrong, how am I addressing that? So for me, these are the things which I give more importance, about diversity, intersectionality, and inclusion. Thanks, Jane.
That's great. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Sangeeta, I've read all of your blog and your material, and I've been stalking you on LinkedIn relentlessly, and I've been learning so much from you. But I wondered, for the benefit of the audience, and on your thoughts.
Absolutely, thank you. So a lot of people, when they think about diversity, they think about race, they think about gender, but they don't think about things like diversity of thought, diversity of experience. And we need to bring all of those things to the table if we're going to create a truly diverse environment. Inclusion is when you create an environment where everyone can bring their authentic selves to work, to play, to any aspect of their lives, and they can thrive in that environment. So you create a place not only where they can come, but they can thrive. And I think that that's something that's really important. Intersectionality was first discussed by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. And her basic argument is what Dipti was saying, is that you can belong to more than one marginalized group. For example, I'm a woman, I'm a person of color. So I'm marginalized both as a woman and as a person of color, as a brown individual. So intersectionality is when you belong to more than one marginalized group and you're faced with discrimination on more than one front. So for example, gender discrimination or racial discrimination. So we all belong to these different groups, and we have to understand that we can't just address it as a gender issue or as a person of color issue. It's got to be both of those things, because we face both of those things. And one other thing I'd like to talk about with, as far as diversity is concerned, I always like to think of diversity as being on a journey. So even though I've been in this field for several decades, I have a doctorate in this area, it's still a journey for me. And so I will be learning from you all today. So we're all at different places in our journey. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it wrong. We're not behind. We're not in front of anyone. We're on our own personal journey. And as long as we honor that and we really focus on trying to learn and expand our knowledge, then I think at the end of the day, every day you can say, okay, I've learned something. I'm a better person today because I've moved on my journey.
I love that. And I think that's really important. I'm learning every day. And sometimes it feels discouraging because I think I've said the wrong thing. And I've apologized. And often I ask probably quite silly questions, but sometimes I just want to be sure. I think with diversity is about being invited to dinner. Inclusion is about being allowed to speak at the dinner table. And I think intersectionality, for me, I'm still exploring this, but I think it's making sure that nobody is waiting their turn to sit at the dinner table, because we're not prioritizing one group of people over the other, often at the expense of one group. And that's, for me, I think this topic I'm learning so much about. We talk a lot about women in technology, but maybe that's discouraging other groups from getting recognition that they deserve. And by focusing on one thing, it means we are not always talking about the other things. And it's not fair to ask people just to look at one aspect of themselves. They should be able to come equally to the dinner table and not asked to wait their turn. Is something I'm thinking a lot about. So that's a challenge which I'm trying to understand better. And I wondered actually if the purposes of educating the audience, and what challenges do you see around you? What experiences do you have perhaps in diversity and intersectionality impacting your life or impacting the life of people around you? So with that, I wonder, Deepti, if you would mind perhaps sharing some experiences and thoughts.
Thank you, Jennifer. So when come with the, let's talk about the challenges, like the problems that I faced in my work culture, the previous work culture, not the current work culture, but in my previous work culture. Um, when I, like many times I have been not invited to the meetings because I'm a woman. Whenever I'm in the meetings, my voice was not heard. My ideas was not heard, and I could really feel it. And um, and the ideas were not heard, not included in the meetings, and the unconscious bias and sometimes conscious bias based upon the person, based upon the individual. Because I'm an intersection person, I am a woman. At the same time, I'm a woman of color. So the predetermined mentalities of thinking that, hey, she's a woman, she cannot do this, or oh, I do not want to hear you because you are coming from an underrepresented country. So instead, let me talk to him or talk to the other person. So I have faced this, but the in the meeting, the other group of people who are involved in this, they might not understand how much of impact they are making to us as a person. These feelings will not only affect the way we think now, but also it will affect our future in a way that it will definitely affect our self-esteem. I have lost my self-esteem in several ways. I have went into a different kind of feelings where, hey, I cannot speak here. I myself has did not take the chance to speak because I already knew that I will not be heard. So it actually affected me and my family in different ways, because that not only in the work culture, I have taken that into my real time family as well. I used to not speak at the time I have to speak, and that has affected my culture. So basically, these are the challenges. How do I address it? How do I address it? I do not want to see outside of me to make the change, because outside of me, it is really difficult to make the change. I have to first change myself to make a change. So I took time for myself. I have understood what the problem is. I wanted to doesn't depend upon the other people to validate me. I have taken that step of speaking it out, talking to the people. Like if still they do not address the problem, I may leave from the situation, because if I understood that it is not solving the problem, leaving it is the right way that I thought. And I made it sure by having that real good self esteem in myself to speak it out aloud. In certain groups, they might not hear it, but the other people are always wanted to hear and make the necessary changes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I want to say that I think you're brilliant at what you do. I see your tweets, I see all of your, your knowledge and expertise, and it shines from you. And I can see that. And I'm on Twitter in the other side of the world. So if these people can't see that, then I'm sorry that they are like that. I can see it from here. So I just want to tell you, I admire you. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Jennifer.
No, that's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Kay, I wondered if you had any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. I also want to start with the challenge first. I mean, the thing I think we all face basically is that the challenges we receive are invisible. It's not like we get basically a light on and say this is basically something that just happens. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we can't do any mistakes. Of course, mistakes always happen. I also do mistakes, and I also, but if I do a mistake, actually, I also would like to learn about it to improve myself. This is also something I try to do myself to improve, basically. So it's neither about blaming someone. It's basically just to share options and this is perspectives, basically that's what we receive and it's perceived, basically. So say we have the interaction in the world. For me, basically, mostly Also, my deafness is not really visible. I have hearing aids. Yes, I do them. You can see them actually. Also, if you see me in real life, now you can't see it. I can change my head a bit, and you see it. It's probably you saw it now, basically. But still, in everyday life, people don't realize it because they see me. They have the front, and we are interacting. They are not thinking about it. Sometimes, for example, they have to. If I'm at a conference, let's say, or in a restaurant, usually more often than not during conference breaks, they have music, they have a loudspeaker. So if I want to interact with those people, I have to move those people away from the loudspeaker so I can converse with them more easily. So what I have to do basically is really have to point out those kinds of stuff that the people don't really see, don't realize. So it's also an individual thing basically. It's just because I'm deaf, for example, I can't speak for any deaf here. Because also there are deaf people who do speak the sign language, which I don't. So of course, I can't speak about those people. This is also something I have to point out. It's very individual. It's like I said, it is also gets online overseen easily. For example, closed captioning. A lot of conferences nowadays just happen online, and frequently have to ask, is it possible to switch on captioning? That's when the people then get busy with it, and usually they don't say no. It's just they try to help, and that's totally fine. That's how it is. So the challenge basically is really it's invisible. If you have to point it out, and of course, if you have to do this every day, all day long, basically, it also can be tiring. It also could be a bit annoying. Actually, it's also something we have to deal with, and it's okay. I have to deal with it basically, but still, I wish that people could be also get more awareness about it.
Thank you for sharing. I know as we prepared for this conference, you provided a lot of insights to help accessibility here. And thank you for sharing your expertise. I think it's really important that, and thank you for your contributions. It was really useful. And I think when you share these contributions for conferences and on Twitter, I saw you tweeting about accessibility in Microsoft Teams, for example. Sharing these information can help people to think more and make it the normal thing to do, not just an optional add-on. It should be for everybody. So thank you so much for all your effort in helping this to go better. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Sandeep, I wondered if you'd like to share some experience as well. So challenges you mentioned earlier, and Deepti's touched on it as well, about speaking up and also looking internally. And I wondered if you had any thoughts you'd like to share.
Yeah, absolutely, Jen. So I have not came across really that much of discrimination on this, but I would like to really highlight one point on I have experienced personally about the way I talk. Because something is based on my background. Like I am from Orissa in India. Then my modulation of English is slightly different than the normal people of India. So I get discrimination, and some people laughs at me also sometimes, and that hurts sometimes. I cannot express to anybody about it because that's how I talk, and but I don't know how to convey that message to everybody, and it might be an unconscious biasness from others. Their intention might not be to hurt me, but I get hurt for that. So that's my direct experience to this line. And the indirect way is I'm going to talk about something which has been in my mind from a last couple of months. I lost my sister in May, this May, and my niece is differently able. She cannot talk properly, she cannot walk properly. And since my sister used to be into the fashion industry, So she used to take her daughter with her all the time. So she started learning about the fashion technology and what the things happening. And she even represented in many of the fashion shows. My niece. Once I lost my sister, which is my niece's mother. Now she thought that she will build a career in fashion industry. But right now she is facing the real problem. The problem what she's finding is probably she may struggle and she may get into this industry, but at the end, what she is feeling that it is not inclusive, it is exclusive for only different able people to do that. And that's been in my mind from a long time. I don't know how to address that, but in this, I have not seen something in the fashion industry, how they can address this. I have not seen in my future, in my career or in my life ever. So that's the experience I am seeing, and I'm still facing that, how to solve that problem, and nobody is there. And since it's in my, I don't know, but that's what I've been facing right now.
Thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry to hear that. I'm glad that your niece has got you on her side to care and to worry and to find and consider solutions. So I wish you and her all the best for the future, always.
Thanks, Jane.
So Dr. Sangeeta, I wondered if you had any thoughts you'd like to share?
Sure. So I'd like to just broaden the discussion a little bit. I'm seeing a few different things. For example, in the US, we're finally, and I'm very happy to see this, we're finally having a national discussion about differences, whether they're race, whether they're gender, neurodiversity, all of these differences. We're finally having these discussions. And I see people are trying to have respectful, inclusive discussions, but they're lacking two things. One is the terminology, the knowledge of the terminology to actually have these discussions. How do we talk about these things in a respectful way? What did this mean? What does intersectionality mean? So I was very happy to see you started the talk with some definitions so that people understand what these things mean. And so what they're doing is they're turning to their BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color, colleagues and friends to say, tell me, teach me, etc. And they're not realizing that their BIPOC colleagues and friends are also going through these same emotions and sometimes different emotions. And so we can't put this onus on people of color, on women, to explain what are these differences, et cetera. So people really need to work on educating themselves and taking that responsibility to, look, I want to try and make a change in this area. So I need to take on the responsibility of learning about these things. And because people don't understand the terminology and what things actually mean, a lot of people I'm seeing are reacting from a culture of fear. So for example, critical race theory is a huge topic right now in the US. And so many people don't understand what it is. They don't understand that it's a legal theory that really talks about things in a very high level legal platform, if you will. It's not being taught to our kids in school. I had a woman, I was doing a talk, and she said, my 3-year-old is being taught critical race theory. And I said, I can put money on the fact that your 3-year-old is not being taught critical race theory. So people have this fear of this topic that I think we really need to get past it. One gentleman said, well, our kids are being taught to hate their country. And I said, there's nothing in diversity, equity, inclusion that teaches you to hate your country. So I think we have to really educate ourselves so that we can have these conversations with clarity, with accuracy, and not with all this misinformation that's going around. From a personal point, from personal experience, I've like Dipti was talking about, I faced discrimination as a woman of color. I was told that I'm taking the space in my graduate program that a man could be taking, and this actually from a man of color himself. I get complimented on my English all the time. And, so these are things that you face on a daily basis, and you try and turn them into teachable moments. So one of the things people need to think about is that whose responsibility is it to learn about these things? Is it women? Is it anyone who has any kind of difference? Is it our responsibility to teach the people who have different differences about our experiences? Or is it on them that they should be learning and putting in the effort to learn about these things themselves?
That's a great point. And I think sometimes it can be quite fatiguing. You end up with a fatigue of explaining why these things are important. And sometimes it's difficult to understand why it's not important to other people. And I think education is a good point. And who takes responsibility? Who owns that? And I think sometimes people often want to help, but sometimes they translate that into I want to do something. They don't know what to do, so they don't do anything. Because if we can't really boil it down to a checklist to say do this and this and this, follow 3 golden rules, and and because it's so much more nuanced. And I think in today's culture, we're used to things snapping past us in Twitter and LinkedIn. And we are now in a world where we skim information, and it's trying to encourage people to dive deep rather than skimming. So I wondered, what advice would you give really to people who do want to start on that journey, who do want to help other people, and as you say, perhaps are in that position of fear, but feel that diversity, inclusion, intersectionality, and equity is something that is no longer optional, but is something that they should really be part of their lives. And it would be great to get some advice from you panelists in terms of how people can get started on that journey. So Deepti, I wonder if you would mind perhaps sharing some of your thoughts on how people can get started. I know that you already do a lot in this area, supporting women in technology. And what do you think people should perhaps consider or do?
Thank you, Jennifer. So, what I believe personally is I grew up in India. So, I do not know about diversity until I did my master's. So, what I believe is the future generation should not be in that case. As a parent, if children are not taught in the school about the diversity, because I myself cannot I like a group of parents have to come to the school to suggest the schools to start these programs in the school, but I cannot depend upon the school itself. As a mom, I need to teach my kids all the way. I already started teaching my kids in my home about the diversity. My kids are really interested to know what it is, how people look like, how they act, why people look different, and they wanted to know more about this because they are just kids. They don't know anything about it. So as a parent, we need to take the responsibility in which way ever possible by using the all the resources we have. The YouTube channel have especially the videos for kids explaining what is intersectionality, diversity, and inclusion. Apart from that, if you come to the adulthood, in the universities have to take the responsibility of uh, teaching the students, having a course built in to discuss especially on this topic. Many adults even of my age doesn't know what intersectionality is, so it is important step. And when it comes to the companies also have to take the responsibility of, we already have those programs in place of anti harassment and everything, but we need to also incorporate that training, especially on the diversity and inclusion, and take the diversity seriously, because every company says that, hey, we include diversity inclusion, we encourage, but everything should be shown in action. So that part, and each and every company to do that intentional changes, modifications, in the culture of their company to encourage the diversity, different people, their ideologies need to be understood, accepted, and encouraged, so that each and every individual will have the ability to thrive in the company, to get more opportunities. Everybody should have the equal rights.
It's lovely that you're teaching, especially young people, your children. It has to start in the home, I think, or at least the home should be supporting the messages coming from outside. So thank you for sharing. I wonder, Kay, what you think as well. Have you got some thoughts on the question of really how people can get started to learn more and perhaps look at it from not being afraid to ask. I wonder what advice you'd give to people.
Yeah, so for me, it's basically, like I said before, for deaf people, there's not just the model of deaf people, also hearing impaired people that are not profoundly deaf. They have also maybe a kind of different situation like I do. So, but in general, just I want to just highlight a few key points. Basically, what you can do is just try to reduce some noise. Noise could be also echo. Okay? I mean, also, I'm pretty sure also for normal hearing people, echo can be annoying and also make basically the sound distorted so you can't really hear. Another very simple advice is to have good light for faces, especially if, for example, in say on stage in an in-person conference. Sometimes they have the lighting from the side or lighting from behind or something like this. For example, because the stage is in front of a window, that just makes basically people's faces in shadow. It gets harder to the lip reading, for example, which also helps me, especially in noisy conditions, or if it's in foreign languages. Since it's also a foreign language like English, I mean, my native language is German. It also means it's a bit more harder for me. Another thing is if you talk to deaf people or hard of hearing people, then try not to yell or to be louder than normal, because then what happens is basically the hearing aid. It's just a aid, basically. It's not like glasses that you can wear and you see 2020 again. It's basically really an aid to understand, basically. If you yell or even scream into the microphone, basically, so you probably also notice this when you are on stage have a microphone. Then basically what happens is some frequencies where it can just cut or even distorted, because the hearing aid, basically what it also does is to not just to make sure that sound is amplified, but also it's cut because there's some amount of amplification. What it happens is it also can hurt and also even damage an ear. So that's why you have to make sure that you have to limit the sound output to a hearing aid, basically. In my case, I'm having cochlear implants. That means I don't have an amplification of the sounds, but rather it's basically the electrode is going onto the nerve, the hearing nerve, and the hearing nerve is basically what gets me the sense of hearing. But still, I have much less spectrum of frequency, because the electrodes I have basically they don't cover everything. It can't for technical reasons. So you have to be aware of that, how to talk. It's just a reduction of noise, good light for faces. It's basically that easy, and just talk normally. And perhaps if you realize the person is unsure or just always notes his head, basically, and you perhaps know this is unusual, then you could also ask if the person understood everything, because of course you don't want to always say, can you say again? This is not just tiring for me, of course, but also I don't want to keep the flow of the conversation. So and of course, I already mentioned this in video conferences. Please use captioning, basically. If you have captioning, good microphones, this is actually something everyone believes. Again, basically, also, for example, also captioning, I believe, that's helpful for people that are on their way. Just have basically MS Teams on a cell phone and you can read what it says. Someone might have forgotten their headphones, or the batteries are off of this whatever. So this really helps everyone. You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you for sharing. That's lots of useful information, things to consider. When I'm finished this panel, I'm going to go back and listen to that again so I can make sure and take notes so I can try to do better. So thank you for sharing, Kay. Sandeep, I wondered if you had any thoughts on advice and ideas on how people could do better and start learning about these issues.
Yeah, so firstly, I completely agree with what Kay and Deepti said, and this is really necessary that what the external world, like it's the community, having this kind of sessions, or organization building a group of people to lead different groups, and build awareness among people across, and like you are writing blogs, and who follows, we are learning from it. So that's our one responsibility, that we keep writing about your experiences, keep talking about your experience to people. That is more important. And mostly, even I feel, if you have a course in your college or in your school, I just little bit I have doubt on, it should not limit to marks. So people should not try to score 99% on a particular topic, but it's about your thought process, how you build your thought process. We have seen the way our education system is. Sometimes I may be teaching how to behave people, but somebody would have complained about my misbehavior to others, isn't it? So I think the thought process is more important. And how in everyday day-to-day life, I just want to quote the same line what in the case t-shirt, do not accept the default. I want to talk about something on that. What I have seen from my childhood, that whenever any relative comes to my home, my mom used to prepare tea and serve. So that's the default. Like, yes, my mom only going to do that. So when my kid is growing up, she should not build up such impression that, okay, certain kind of work only my mom does and certain kind of work only my father does. So I want to make sure we both are doing that at home, to make sure, no, he should not think in that perspective. We should build the thought process within the childhood, that, okay, no, there is no such kind of, differences. So I feel that's what I believe more important than building anything else. Thanks, Jan.
That's an important point. It sounds like people need to give themselves two things: a roadmap and a compass, a moral compass to help guide the direction, but also a roadmap to educate themselves. So, Dr. Sangeeta, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know I've saved most of your LinkedIn posts by now, but for the benefit of the audience, it would be great to hear your opinion.
Absolutely, thank you. So I'd like to build on what we were talking about the kids, and also then relate it to the workplace. So my daughter was 6 when she faced her first incident of racism, when a little boy on the playground said, "I don't want to play with you because you're brown." So, of course we dealt with it with the school and the teacher and et cetera. But I was telling my husband, I said, we need to do something more. This is the space that I work in. And yes, I work only with adults, but maybe we need to broaden that. So we wrote a children's book on differences. And we, take that book, and this is part of giving back. And we talk to schools and we give them free copies, and teachers and organizations, et cetera. So as I work with the young people, because I do a lot of pro bono work for Boy Scouts and for schools, and work with their boards and how to make a more diverse school environment. One of the things that's really amazing, if we sit there and listen to the kids, they are so far ahead of where the adults are in these conversations. So my kids are just a couple months younger than your son, Jen. They'll be 16 in December. And when we're doing, Boy Scouts is launching a new DEI badge, and I've been beta testing it. And I listen to the kids and their conversations. To them, this is the norm. DEI is the norm. It is part of their natural thinking process. So how this relates to employers is that you need to prepare for this generation that is coming in. that is going to see everything as normal. So in our household, my kids see my husband cooking, they see my husband doing dishes just as much as they see me doing this. There is no division that, this is mom's job, this is dad's job. So for example, this morning I'm on this talk with you all, and it's in the early hours where it's drop off for school. So my husband is doing the drop off, a very natural, hey, I've got this, you need to drop off the kids. They see this division and they see that we both do everything. So they're taking these impressions and they're going to bring all of this to the working environment. So our workplaces have to prepare for this difference in thought process that these young people have that our adults don't have. So we're still teaching the adults, what does this mean? What does it mean to be inclusive? Our kids are already there. So I think pretty soon I will be out of a job, and I will be very happy about it when we see this new generation in the working environment, and they're going to say, wait a minute, what do you mean I'm being paid less than a man? That's not going to fly. You need to change that. What do you mean you're not going to accommodate me going to see my kids' softball game or dance recital or whatever it is that your children are doing? No, this is part of what I need. I need workplace flexibility. This is their norm. So if workplaces don't start thinking and making these changes, they're going to have a generation that is going to be so out of sync with the way our working environment is that they're going to have a hard time recruiting employees and keeping them. So we've got to start thinking the same way our kids are thinking and saying, what do we need to create these environments? What do we need? We all went remote during the pandemic, and women bore this unbelievable burden of taking care of the kids and their online schooling, et cetera, et cetera. And they want flexibility when they go back to work. What are you doing in your working environment to create this environment where parents, both genders, any gender, where parents can have that flexibility that they need with their families? So working environments have to start listening. They've got to catch up with where the general population is, and they've got to prepare for this new generation that is coming in that is going to be vastly different in their expectations of what is normal for them.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point, because I think sometimes we focus on things like women's technology and we forget about age and generational differences as well. So I gave a conference talk recently, and I said, is there any questions, anyone? And then I said, Bueller, the Ferris Bueller movie, Ferris Bueller's Day Out, and nobody laughed. And I realised that was because they were all much younger than me and probably hadn't seen the movie. So that's suddenly, I know it's a silly example really, but it made me realise actually we do talk different languages in different generations, and like you say, the workplace has to keep up. I think as well, to do that so that these values become more normal, we do have to speak out if we see something. And that can be quite hard for the individual who's experiencing an issue. But that doesn't mean that for the witnesses, the spectators, that they should just do nothing. I know it can be hard to speak up and speak out. It's something I do. It doesn't always make me popular, but I'm not always out to be liked or popular. I think there's bigger things in life. So I wondered if you'd any advice on how we can speak up and speak out when we see something. So Dr. Sangeeta, you've given an example of something in the playground, and you've gone to deal with the school and, turned it into that teachable moment for everybody involved. And I wondered really if there are any other ideas that people, the panelists, can have to try and make sure our values are in line with the compass that we have, and also what we can see happening in everyday life. So Deepti, if I might start with you, have you any tips for people who want to take action or do something if they see something?
Yes, absolutely. So I have one important point that I have seen everywhere, starting from the school till the teenagers or till in the workplace. I have seen everywhere. So whenever an individual is facing a problem, basically the racism problem, or as I'm a woman of color, whenever they are being discriminated, they are very scared to speak out because they are scared of judgment, that somebody else might think something about me if I speak up. I have been there since like couple of years, but then finally I speak out. People are ready to listen what we are trying to say, but the thing is, they listen and they say, empathize with us, but no action from there. They listen to you, they understand you, but they tell you that, hey, I listen to you, I understand you, but here I cannot do anything for this problem. I think you have to go with this. I believe that strongly that that is not the solution. Whenever an individual coming out, because coming out is itself a very important thing, that we get so much of suppression within ourselves, we face so much within ourselves, and coming out to speak up is a very big thing for us. So whenever we do that, please do not, this is for everybody that I am telling, like, not only listen, but think about what you wanted to do, whether you wanted to approach another individual who can join you to speak up. Because I know that by listening, and only if you act, you might be centered out, right? But if you can speak up and speak to the other individual who can join you in taking that moment of helping this other individual who is already suffering, and making, like, taking that step, taking that step ahead to make the change, getting the people that you need to make the change, and making the modification to help this individual out of that, really you are helping a life over there. Because that way that individual will regain their self-esteem and they can move forward in their life. That is the important point I wanted to bring this up in this panel.
That's a really crucial point. Thank you. And it's great advice. People can help to build that ally network. I know as a technical female, I've tended to club together with people from different backgrounds. So I think by doing that, we become stronger. So I wonder, Kay, I wondered if you had any thoughts or suggestion on how people can speak up or speak out when they see something. What should they do?
Well, I would say is use common sense. If you to speak up, basically, it's not like let's say in a conference, for example, online conference, and people ask for captioning, which is fine. I'm happy to do so because people keep forgetting this is okay. Uh, but what you shouldn't do is, for example, wait a minute, we need to switch on captioning because Kai asked for it. That's to point me out like this. That's not really nice. Just to elevate me the status. That's the one that we're doing it for. I just want to be one of the audience. Basically, I don't want to be basically discriminated. Basically, it's also dividing people in he needs and they don't. It's just common sense. Basically, that's my opinion. Basically, and now already said before. It's if you have deafness, there's not really a role model for deafness here because there's quite a wide range of hearing impairments, of being hard of hearing or deaf or whatever you call it. For example, myself, I struggle honestly a bit with this word, definitely because I'm not sure if it's really appropriate for me because some people actually refer deafness only to people who sign, and I don't sign, so but I don't really fall into category, and for me, I feel like deafness is easiest because I really can't hear anything. I could better really say I'm deaf because even if I switch off the hearing aids, basically, I won't hear anything no matter what happens. So what you, if you are unsure and you have a conference, maybe in-person conference, and you realize there's someone who might have the need of help or something, let's say also a wheelchair user or something like this, you can actually just discreetly approach the person and ask if you can offer any accommodation to the person, basically. But don't go on stage and say, we provide something for you right away. That's not nice. And maybe also check for the reaction. But here again, don't just point it out either.
That's good advice, and I think it goes to the heart of intersectionality. There's so many other things to consider when we consider people, not just one characteristic, but everything else, being sensitive. So thank you for that. It's something that I'll take away for myself. Sandeep, I wondered if I might ask you if you had any thoughts really on what people can do to speak up and speak out.
Yes, sure, Jen. So I'm from India, and I have seen that we have been talking about this. I'm into technology, and in this community, all are educated people, and at least they can understand. But I really wanted to point those set of people who are from the villages, and these things is in their villages. They don't even know what is DE and I, and that problem is at the root level, and somebody may be there. So, but what I would like to say is, some initiative has to be there from government, that how it should start from the root, from every corner of your country, as well as some from NGOs should start think about what they can do that for that. And I would like to just reiterate the line from Mahatma Gandhi: if you don't ask, you don't get it. So if you face some discrimination, you should speak up. So we should create at least if you face that, go and talk to one person to whom you trust. Because we always feel that somebody may judge you, what is wrong, they may not understand or something, but at least go and talk to somebody. If you don't speak out, the chances of solving that problem is not there. It's not necessary that when you speak though you will get the solution, but at least there is a chance, and that's where we should start with. At least we should encourage people to talk about. Do not think about the result. We don't know whether somebody can solve it or not. So I always tell that this thing, we should start from the root, starting from the villages, from every corner of the country, and encourage everybody to speak about. Don't think about the result right now. Please speak about that. So more you speak, that louder people can listen about it. Thanks, Jan.
That's a really nice idea. You're right, starting somewhere is a good idea, as long as you make a start.
Absolutely. Yes, Jan.
That's a really good advice. So Dr. Sangeeta, I wondered on your thoughts as well on, approaching the difficult subject with speaking up or tackling. I know you've given an example, but I wondered, you've probably got lots of advice on this topic. I wondered on your thoughts.
So like Sandeep, I also have a line from Mahatma Gandhi that I really believe in. And Mahatma Gandhi was my first connection to my Indian heritage. It's be the change you wish to see in the world. And what that means for me is that one person can make a difference. It starts with each and every single one of us doing something and standing up and saying something and recognizing it and being aware, so that we can try and make these changes that we all say that we want. But what are we doing to bring about those changes? So if you are in a meeting and you see a woman being talked over, or you see a man interrupting a woman, called manterrupting, which happens so often, speak up. Say, you know what, I think Susan was trying to make a point. Susan, would you like to continue and finish your point? So you're putting everyone at the meeting, you're letting everyone know, hey, she was interrupted, and I'm going to bring the meeting back to let her finish her thought. Simple thing, but it's a simple thing that every single one of us can do in a meeting. So you can make a big impact on people around you just by the way you interact with people. So it's really important to make sure, what am I doing today? I call it stepping into action. What am I doing today to step into action when I see something going on? You can do this as an individual. You can do this as a leader. Be aware of your unconscious biases as a leader. Be aware, are you including everyone, or are you practicing, being influenced by affirmative action, or affinity bias, which I call the mini-me bias. You're gravitating towards people who are just like you. Let other voices speak as well. Make sure you create that space for other voices to speak as well, and that it's not just people who are like you or who think like you who are being given that platform to speak. And if you're an organization, then you need to do it in the same way. You need to make sure that DEI, creating an inclusive environment, is part of your business strategy. Every organization I know says, our people are our greatest resources. Well, my answer to that is, what are you doing about it? What are you doing to show them that they are your greatest resources? What can you do? So make it part of your business strategy. Give this subject a seat at the table along with every other part of your business strategy, so that it becomes the way you conduct business. It's not just, oh yeah, let's do a training and a one-off type of thing and we're done. You're not done. It has to become part of the way that you think about your marketing, how you think about product creation, how you think about any aspect of your business. So we can do things on an individual level, which I think all of us really need to do. We can do things as leaders of groups and team leads, and we can do things as organizations. There is a role in this space for every single one of those groups. But I think it really has to start with the individual. If you see something, step out of your comfort zone and say something. Support other people who maybe are intimidated and maybe don't feel they have the voice to speak. Create that space where their voice is heard.
That's lovely advice, and I think that's so important, actually. It may involve a risk to yourself, but that's okay. There's always a hard choice. So choose your hard. Either you speak out and take the risk, or you don't speak out and you lose some integrity. And actually, integrity is what will see you through. Integrity is what's important, and that's what draws people to you. Whether you're a business or technical community or just individual volunteer, I think that's the most important thing. And I think you're so right. It's it takes courage, but if we don't do it ourselves, we can't point at other people and say, well, they're not doing it. And just I now can read Kay's t-shirt, Don't Accept the Default by Abel Wang. I couldn't read it earlier. I can see it now. And I think by speaking up and speaking out, we're not accepting the default. So thank you, Kay, for wearing that wonderful t-shirt. It's absolutely right for data and for people. So I'm sorry, we're just over time. And honestly, I could talk to you all day. I've loved our conversation, and I will cherish this as one of the best presentations I've ever delivered or been part of, because I've learned something from you all. And I want to thank you humbly from me for coming with me and participating and sharing, because I think by speaking up and speaking out as individuals and as a collective group, hopefully we will make a change. So thank you so much, and thank you to the audience for joining us today. And I want to say a huge thank you to Amit and the team over at Data Platform Summit for hosting us and allowing us the space at the table to have this conversation. And it's been my privilege to speak with you all today, and you're all remarkable. And thank you so much.
Thank you for having all of us.
Thank you for hosting this. This has been wonderful.
It was nice talking to you, everybody. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah.